I think it's appropriate that I name my sermon today Faith Float, since we had all this rain. We might need to float home from here, who knows. But this story is one I'm sure you've heard before. Has anybody never heard the story of Jesus walking on the water before? Very good. We've all heard it before. So I'm going to try to put some new thought into the story today and not just bore you to death. I do want you to think about a few things in this text. First of all, if you remember last week in the gospel text, we saw that Jesus had just gotten news that his cousin and friend of ministry, John the Baptist, had died. And he had tried to go across the lake to find some peace for himself to deal with his grief. But once he got there, the crowds all followed, and there he had to be a minister again. So he went around and he healed their sick and he ministered to them, and then he had to feed the 5,000 folks. And so all that has gone on all in the same day. And at the end of the day, he's tired. Y'all ever had a long day and you're tired at the end of the day? And how many of y'all at the end of a long, long day when you're really so tired and weary, how many of you all say, okay, now it's time to climb a mountain and pray? Maybe we should. At the end of the longest of days, at the end of the day where you've gotten bad news, tragic news, at the end of the day where you've had to minister to thousands of people, at the end of the day when you've had to prove to your most faithful friends once again that God is able to do miracles. At the end of the day when you've overseen this incredible miracle of feeding 5,000 people, at the end of the day, there still needs to be time to pray. That kind of faith, you see, that kind of faith, the life, not transforming, but life molding faith, that's the kind of faith that allows us to have the power we need to do anything that God will call us to do. For you see, as the disciples, they got into the boat to go on across where Jesus had told them to go, Jesus is up there praying, and he gets done with his prayer time, and he's got to get to where they are. Now, we all know from basic elementary school geometry that the closest distance between 2 points is what? A straight line. Now, Jesus is on this side of the lake. It's a big round circle kind of thing. He tells them to go to this side of the lake. So what's the closest way to get there? Across the lake. But he doesn't have a boat. So Jesus walked the water. It's an amazing thing. And I've often thought about this because I am a science fiction nerd. Why didn't he just call up to the Enterprise and say, Scotty, beam me over to the side? Or maybe not Scotty, he could say God. God, Dad, shoot me over to the side. It's stormy and I don't want to get wet. He could have done all kinds of things. He could have put on the Superman cape, right? Pulled back his cape here and had a big J for Jesus on his chest. He could have flown over there, right? He could have gotten Laura Davis's broom and flown over there. There's no telling what he could have done. He could have gotten from one side of the lake. We joked about that yesterday. He could have gotten across the lake in lots of different ways. But he decided to walk across the lake. You have to ask yourself why. If Jesus and God could have gotten from one side of the lake to the other in hundreds and hundreds of different ways, I mean, my imagination is limited. Why did he decide to walk across the top of the water? Well, the answer is simple. And it goes back to my understanding of every miracle Jesus ever did. Jesus only performed miracles so that other people's faith would be inspired. Jesus never did miracles for the sake of showiness. Jesus never did miracles just to draw a crowd. Jesus did miracles only for the sake of inspiring faith in others. Now, his faith had been renewed. He'd had his ultra-long day. He'd heard the bad news about John. He'd gotten through all that. He was able to go finally up this mountain and have his private prayer time with God. So his faith is energized. He's renewed. And I think Jesus has this sense. My boys, they don't quite get it yet. They don't quite get it yet. Even today, when they came to me and said, here's all these people, they're going to be hungry, send them away. They don't quite get it that it's our responsibility to take care of the people who seek to follow us and who seek to follow me. They don't get it yet. And so I think Jesus' purpose in his mind let me give them a sign, another sign, so that maybe they'll get it. Maybe they'll understand that I'm not just a teacher. Maybe they'll understand I'm not just a prophet. I'm not just a guy who tells great stories and who sometimes does things like healing people and multiplying bread and fish to feed a great crowd. But I truly am the Messiah. Let me do something to demonstrate to them so they'll finally get it. They'll finally get it. Have y'all ever known young men who had a hard time getting things through their thick head? You've known some Vanderbilt like that? Yeah, okay. We've all known people like that. My mother was to be on the front row saying, "Amen, I raised one." Peter, of all the disciples, I think is the hardest-headed one of them all. He's this blue-collar fisherman who's, and I don't mean this in any derogatory way, he's without a doubt ignorant at this point in his life. All right? All he's ever done is live on the side of the Sea of Galilee and fish. You know, they didn't have schools back then. People like him did not know how to read. They didn't know how to write. And Peter's the one who, being an extroverted, blue-collar dude, says, "All right, you show me. Show me. Let me see this." Or he's always the first one to speak out. When I was in Crawfordville, Florida, as a pastor, I once preached a sermon, and I called it "Peter with a mullet head." Now, you need to understand that. Every culture has its own derogatory term for rednecks, right? I don't know if there's a special one for South Carolina than just redneck, but in Kentucky and Indiana, the derogatory term for a really bad redneck is a goat roper. And on the Gulf Coast of North Florida, the derogatory term for the redneck fisherman is mullet head. And so I preached a sermon one time called "Jesus with the Mullet Head," and I had a couple ladies that were so upset before church ever started, and I would call them, St. Peter, mullet head. But they got it. He was this blue-collar, redneck fisherman who was always the first one to speak and oftentimes ends up with his foot in his mouth. And so here we see the disciples in the boat in the middle of a storm. Here comes Jesus tumbling across the top of the water. Wow. And Peter says, "If it's you, Lord, bid that I might come out to you." Oh boy, you mullet head too. Why would you want to get out of a perfectly safe boat out into the sea in the middle of the night in the middle of a storm? It doesn't make sense. But here Peter says it. And he has faith enough to want to try. And so he gets out of the boat, and sure enough, there he is, walking on the water with Jesus. Now, I don't know about you, but I've tried to do this all my life. I'm fascinated by the story from my childhood. And when we were 10, we moved out of a neighborhood exactly like this one to a house way out in the middle of the country, didn't have any neighbors. And a year later, my parents put in a little pool, and I spent hours trying to get a fast running start and run across top of the water to get to the side. You know how many times I did it? None. I might get one step, feeling like I was on top, and then I just plow right on down. Something about physics and gravity and me that just didn't make me feel so. I have had an experience, though, when I got to visit the Holy Land a few years ago. I got to spend an hour in the Dead Sea. And if you don't know anything about the Dead Sea, you should know it's like super, super salty. And the salt in the water makes the water a lot thicker, which makes it easier to float. It's absolutely amazing. You can sit as if you are in a lounge chair with a book, with no life jacket or no life preservative. Just sit there and read, and your book never gets wet. It's amazing how buoyant you are in that salt water. But Jesus wasn't in the Dead Sea. He was at the Sea of Galilee, which is freshwater lake. So it's amazing. How did he do it? Well, I think we have to go back to remember that Jesus had just spent time with God in prayer. He just spent a day ministering to others. His faith was great and had been just rebolstered. And here he is trying to demonstrate to his disciples once and for all that he is the Messiah, who not only has power over sickness, who not only has power over food and crowds, but he also has power over physics and nature And he is able to do this miraculous thing. And not only that, but he can share this power with others. And so when Peter says, Lord, bid that I can come out there with you, the power from Christ comes to Peter through his faith. Now what happens to Peter? We all know the story, right? What happens to Peter? He takes his eyes off Jesus. He takes his eyes off Jesus and starts to notice the storm all around, and he starts to sink. How easy is it? Sometimes Bible stories are tricky and theology is deep, and sometimes it just slaps you right across the face. Keep your eyes on Jesus, and you'll float. You'll float through life's storms. You'll float through difficulties. You have the power to overcome all the things of the world if you'll just keep your eyes on Jesus. Now that sounds like it's so Pollyanna and such a bumper sticker theology that it can't possibly be true, but I can tell you that's what faith is. Faith is having such a great confidence in God and in God's love and in God's care for us that we know that no matter how difficult our times and days or how great our griefs may be, that if we can only keep our faith in Christ, that Christ will indeed hold us up. And while the storms of life and the storms of this world might be raging all around us, and while the gravity of our own personal situations might be trying to pull us down and drown us in our own despair, it is only by keeping our eyes on Jesus, and it is only by having that faith in Jesus that we are able to float above and through all those troubles. An interesting text today in the Old Testament that Sidney read for us earlier, as the brothers threw Joseph into the pit. What happened? They leave him there and he dies? No. Wild animals fall in, they eat him up? No. It was by faith and the faithfulness of his brothers that he was what? Lifted out of that pit. He didn't float magically, but he was lifted out of that pit because a couple of the brothers had enough faith to say, we shouldn't have our brother's blood on our hands. And indeed, even as they sold him into slavery and off into Egypt, it was by his faith that he overcame becoming a slave to become the second most powerful man in all of Egypt. Faith allows us to float and to elevate beyond all of our troubles and even in the glory of God. Today, as we think about this story, I hope that we can think about it in terms of our own personal situation. I don't know what's going on in all of your lives, but I know that none of your lives are perfect. And I can promise you mine are not. I do know that as I keep my eyes on Jesus, I feel much more confident. And I don't feel as if the waves are going to batter me down, and I don't feel like I'm drowning. I've read this summer several different stories of young people who've drowned in lakes and rivers around the state. I'm not telling you, it's always sad to me. And it's always someone who doesn't know how to swim very well, who gets out a little bit too far, and they start to panic. They start to panic. And the amazing thing is, and it's human nature, when you feel like you're going to drown, you start working harder to not drown. But if you don't know the basics of swimming, all that flailing does usually is pushes you down farther into the water. The most basic thing that anyone can ever do if they find themselves in water over their heads is just simply be still. Our bodies are buoyant. And if we'll just be still and draw a deep breath, while most of our body might go under the surface, our little face, and we just stand right there at the top. And we can breathe, and we can hang there for hours, as long as we're relaxed. As long as we're relaxed. Now that little safety lesson from Boy Scouts translates. In our spiritual lives, when we think we're drowning, we don't need to work harder. We don't need to panic. We don't need to fight. We need to just relax and breathe deeply and drink in the Spirit of God, because it's that faith that will allow us to float through those times of trouble and allow our lives and our spirits to be preserved. Faith floats. May we all have faith in us this day and in the days to come. Let's pray. Lord God, thank you for allowing us to revisit this story of an incredible time of miraculous power. And I pray that as we see it and read it and hear it today again, that we might all, like the disciples in the boat, come to have faith to say that you are the Christ, the Son of the living God, and that we all have faith enough to know that you will be with us, to support us, to carry us, to uphold us through life every storm. Give us the faith, dear God, that will always flow. We pray these things in Christ.
This week was